would you be willing to kind of share some other tools? Because I do feel like that's arguably one of the best for the physical side. Would you be willing to share some for the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual?
Sure.
Yeah.
So from a mental side of things, I know when you get challenged from things that begin to happen in life, it's very easy to allow depression, sadness, those types of things to kind of begin to pull you in, and that's okay. What I often say, even to myself, because I just went through a period where, in all transparency, I had a couple of days of just being really sad. Just really sad. The key was to not make it who I was. It was what I was experiencing. And we talk about it often. It's like, I am sad. No, I'm not sad. I am not sad. I am experiencing sadness, right? So to say that I am the sadness makes it part of my identity. And that's not true. I am not the sadness. I am experiencing sadness because obviously something was coming up for me. Obviously there was something that was occurring, even though I wasn't consciously aware of it, right? I had no conscious awareness of what had triggered the sadness within me, but I was experiencing it. And if I just shoved it down and pretended like it wasn't happening for me, then I couldn't get through it. And if I assigned some type of importance to it, then it became my identity. So the best thing I could do was journal. Like go to my journal, back to my basics, and just journal out what I was feeling so I could get it out of my person and onto something. And then not allow it to become my identity, not allow it to be significant, just allow it to be until it wasn't any longer. And you, as my loving partner, gave me space to do that. And just as fast as it came on, it left. And that was the end of it. I feel like so often we do identify ourselves with our emotions. We tie who we are to what we feel. And then it creates this cycle or this spiral. And it impacts our mental and it impacts our emotional. So we turn our feelings into our emotions, right? To me, those are separate things. So
Do you mean feelings into thoughts or feelings into emotions?
Feelings into emotions, okay. And even into our thoughts.
Can you expand on that?
You're right. So feelings are something that we have that stay with us. They're triggered kind of in our heart center and we feel them. Emotions are instant, right? So I might have an emotional response to something that you do. Mm-hmm. And then it can trigger a feeling potentially, but feelings are something that might stick around a little bit longer than an emotion. Mm-hmm. Emotions are more instinctual. Okay. Feelings are more lasting, but we'll take feelings and we'll keep having emotions from them, right? Or vice versa. So if I allow my feelings to stay as long as they need to and process them, then I can get through it and move on instead of triggering emotions, and making them stay longer than they need to. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And for those listening, you're talking about the heart versus the head. So correct. Feelings and emotions are happening in the heart. Thoughts, well, we can go into science about that happening from the heart and the head as well. But a lot of people experience their thoughts in their head.
Yes.
So yeah, I love everything you said. And maybe just to quickly kind of break down that, because I feel like you kind of brought emotion or mindsets and emotion, or mental and emotional together in that sense. So the tools for the mental side seemed like was self-talk, really focusing on how we're talking to ourselves.
Yes.
And how we're talking to ourselves can be influenced by the emotions or the feelings that we're having. And so the emotions are things that could be reactional. Is that a word?
Yeah, it sure is.
Reactions.
And if not, it is now.
It
So
is
who
now.
cares?
Reactionary, maybe that might be the term I'm looking for. And feelings tend to be a little bit more, might stay a little bit longer.
Yes.
And an emotion may create a feeling. A feeling may spark an emotion. And both of those may even impact the way that we're thinking. And so that's why they go hand in hand in terms of, which makes sense, because when we are heart and mind and we're aligning those together, that there is going to be some interplay with how they all, how we function with those. Does that sound about right?
Perfect summary.
Awesome.
And I personally find it very challenging to separate mental and emotional.
Sure.
Because they do interplay so much together. And so, yes, they're in different segments, but the interplay, and that's how I feel about all of aspects of our being, right? That's why it is so important for us to understand every level of ourself, because we're not that separated out. We're not like a layered cake. We are just all integrated. And so we have to really focus on how every one of those layers are truly being healthy and well. And self-love helps us understand that, because the more we know ourselves through self-love, the quicker we can identify, just like I did during that time of sadness, when something is awry and what our being is calling us to do about it.
I love that. If we can kind of lastly discuss the spiritual side, what would be a great tool?
This one's a little more challenging because everyone has their own path up the mountain.
Yes.
I don't know that there's a single way other than once you know your heart, once you know how you're being called to self-love, honor how you're being called to your spiritual way up the mountain. Because anyone else telling you is them telling you their way up the mountain. Your way up the mountain is your way up the mountain. And so honor that. Your spirit is going to call you the direction you are meant to go. And by knowing yourself and loving yourself, you're going to know that direction. Your compass is in here.
The heart.
The heart. The heart center.
That's beautiful advice. And it seems like in many ways that if someone were to practice the physical, the mental, and emotional, that naturally that is all-encompassing of the spiritual. So one will increase their understanding spiritually by understanding themselves physically, mentally, and emotionally. And that might help people who don't feel aligned with their purpose or don't know what the purpose is. And maybe for many it's not a religion or a faith, or maybe it is, who knows. But sometimes purpose could be a spiritual experience in understanding one's purpose. And when we realize, as you beautifully stated earlier, that when we choose to be, we are our own purpose. And whatever we put intention and focus towards, therefore, becomes purposeful. Full of purpose, right?
Full of purpose.
And so from that, we can make a choice in love. And in many ways, that does align with a lot of faiths. It does align with a lot of religion. That does align with, even if love is your religion, or if you don't believe in God, if it's science or if it's medicine or whatever you believe in, if it's aligned with who you are, then you're bringing your purpose forward. Then there's no question of your purpose. And so that can be a very spiritual experience when all of those are aligned.
Agreed.